Welcome to the Firehouse Roundtable podcast, brought to you by the Ventura Fire Foundation. I'm one of your hosts, Peter McKenzie, retired fire captain with the City of Ventura Fire Department, and my co-host, Jason Kay, active battalion chief with the City of Ventura Fire Department. We are going to bring awareness to real issues that face firefighters and their families. We want you to feel like you have a seat at the kitchen table, which every firefighter knows is the heart of the firehouse. Let's get right into the episode.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Firehouse Roundtable. I'm here with my host, John Ellis, again, and he's back for interviewing another two laterals that we've had recently graduate probation. I know it's been, 5 or 6 months at this point. We have Sam Stein and Ryan Howell with us today. So welcome to the show, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. See, these guys are they're so good at podcasts. We're already waving at the camera because everybody knows you can hear the waves. That's perfect. So why don't we start with you, Ryan? Let's start with kind of what department you came from, what led you to Ventura City, kind of your route to get to where you are today. And I know that it's got to be hard to be a rookie after 9 years as a firefighter again. So how did that go? And just kind of tell us about yourself and how you got here.
I came from Cal Fire, Riverside. I was there, like Chief just said, 9 years. I was in San Bernardino for a year or two, and then was in Riverside the other 7 years pretty much. So the mandates and everything were just getting to the point where it was getting difficult for my kids. My son at the time was like five or six, and was like, "Can you come?" I was asking me to come home, and I was kept getting mandated onto like 10 days plus in a row, and it was just getting old after having it happen months and months at a time. And so I was like, "All right, well, I'll try to find something closer to home." I was either going to promote to engineer and try to get to San Luis Obispo with Cal Fire, or find something else, and saw Ventura County and Ventura City both had openings, and applied to both, and got job offers. And the first one that called me is where I ended up. It was here in Ventura City. So happy to be here and enjoying working here and the guys I've met and stuff like that. So it's been a fun transition, and don't regret any of it. So it's fun.
Nice. Yeah. Your commute shrank drastically, right?
Yeah. Yes. My commute, I live up in San Ynez. So it's like an hour north of Ventura, and I was commuting to Riverside, which is like from my station to my house was 170 miles. So I definitely cut off over 100 miles each way. So definitely helped getting this as well.
So you talked about mandates, Cal Fire versus Ventura City. Tell me, I think I interviewed you, right, when you first got hired. Tell me about the mandates. I think you even brought that up in your interview with Cal Fire, and how many those were.
Yeah, so like they don't have their max really is just based on out of county assignments, and so like at the station they don't have a max amount of days you can do in a row before you have to have relief. And so like I routinely do 10 days in a row because their schedule's 3 days on, 4 days off, and all 4 of my days that I'm supposed to be off would be mandates. Or I'd get 1 day off and it just wouldn't even be worth driving home for the day, because it would be, I just pick up a day for someone else's mandate is how it ended up falling usually. And so with the distance I lived and just the schedule that they have and the amount of vacancies, I think when I left, they had a little over 100 vacancies for 100 fire stations. Wow. So, and you only have 2 shifts. That's pretty much every other shift. Every other shift's empty pretty much. So it's it definitely was brutal. And that part of it it's just the amount of mandates. I know it goes in waves. I mean, it wasn't like that the whole 9 years for sure. At times they're fully staffed, and then LA County or Orange County or LA City will have a big hire, and Orange County is really good about picking off Riverside County guys with laterals. They pick off a good 20 a year usually. So, and we're getting good at it too, it seems like. So I think there's 6 of us in the last year and a half. So.
Yeah, we finally started having our own in-house academy, which is cool. So hopefully some of those will go away too. But it's been a blessing to have as many laterals wanting to come up to Ventura City as we have. Well, you mentioned your kids and family and how hard it was on that. I want to circle back to that eventually, but let's start let's get an intro on Sam Stein, kind of the same thing. How'd you get into this fire service? You were all over the place, I know, as far as where you worked, and then how'd you end up in Ventura?
I grew up in Chicago, and when I was like my summer of high school, the fire department hired like hydrant techs, and you just drive around and test all the hydrants for like a suburb, basically. So I did that, and I was like, oh man, the fire department seems like a place to work. And then through a series of like mistakes and miscalculations, I ended up working for a fire department as a paramedic in Illinois, on like northern Illinois. And then I went through like some personal stuff, and I decided to move. I moved to Wyoming. I did 7 years there. I did a bunch of years as like a medic, just trying to get my flight certs done. So I did that, and then I realized I missed fire, so I went back to fire full time, and I worked for Jackson Hole Fire for 4 years. And I was flying there as well. I was doing it's called Classic Air Medical. I was working there part time, and I was working all the time, and my paychecks were not big. And I was in a serious relationship with my now fiance, and she was like, "You're working too much. We're moving." And I was like, "Okay." And we were interviewing in Southern California, and I never forget. I went into it. This was like my warm up interview I was like set on Santa Barbara County, and this was like my warm up interview the same day. And Santa Barbara County canceled theirs off some weird thing, and I was like, "Well, I'm here anyway. I'll do the interview." And I went in, and it was, I want to say it was Andrini, Maples, and Sean Hughes. And talking to Sean Hughes within the first like 10 minutes, I was like, "Oh, this department." He was just like, "Oh yeah, dude, it's like super chill here." And I was just like, "Oh, I love this guy." And pretty quickly by the end of the interview, I was like, "Oh, I can't mess anything up. Like, I have to work here." And so then I met like Tong, I think, on my other part of it, and just like pretty much within like 2 hours, I went from being like, "Oh, it's a warm-up interview," to being like, "Hey, honey, we have to. This is where we're gonna go." And then I looked out. I got a call from Miser like a week later. He was like, "Hey, can you come back?" So I flew back to California. I took like my last 2 sick days, and I didn't tell anyone at work either in my last job. And I love the guys at the department. The department has growing pains, but like someone was watching my banks, and they're like, "You're like really cashing out your vacation sick days." And I was like, "This looks like the craziest thing. I have no idea." And then we moved like pretty much sight unseen a couple months later, and we've been here.
Had you ever been to Ventura before?
No.
That's crazy.
Nice.
What a crazy story. And you guys live in the city of Ventura now, is that right?
Yeah, now we live in Midtown.
Okay. That's a crazy story. And were you planning on living in Santa Barbara when you were applying up there? Was that the goal?
We were like thinking like Ojai area, and I have a buddy who lives up in Slow. So we were like, "Oh, we'll like live in like Los Osos or somewhere like cool up there." And it just ended up working out. We have a great house here that we rent, and we signed like a 2-year lease. And this is the first time in my life where I haven't screwed myself over in a lease. So it was like a sign.
And now you can't go anywhere.
And now I can't.
You're parked into a lease for a while.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not going to just bypass Ukraine.
Yeah.
Tell me about Ukraine. Tell me kind of how that came up, and I've heard your story on it. So just kind of give me your story to memorialize it on the podcast. I'd love to hear that again.
I remember I told you about it, right? I think it was your last shift. It was one of your last shifts as a captain, if I'm not mistaken, at 5. And I hadn't really worked at 5. And because I had avoided it because I was like on probation and stuff still. And I remember.
So you made the whole thing up?
No.
Just kidding.
And I remember thinking,
Wouldn't be.
I just remember being like so nervous, and you're like, "Oh, it's like, tell me about that." And I was like, I don't really want to talk about it because it's like, it's not sensitive. It's like emotional to like honestly talk about, because I've talked to you. I think talking to you about it, you're the first person I like actually was honest about it. But I'm Jewish. My family's Jewish. We have like a bunch of our family was involved in the Holocaust. And I remember when I was a kid learning about it, and I was like, it's really weird that like awful things were happening to humans and no one did anything. And I remember growing up with that, like kind of in the back of my head. And then the Ukraine thing, when that happened, I just remember like seeing all this horrible stuff about like hospitals being bombed and like just random civilians being murdered. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is like a really horrible thing that nobody's doing anything about. And then it was kind of like that, like, oh no, like, oh no, now I know what it feels like. So I had made a couple contacts online and ended up starting a 501, a nonprofit with a bunch of California firefighters called Project Joint Guardian. And what we do now is we deploy fire and medical teams to like active combat zones and active war zones where other nonprofits really want to go. And we do fire training, we do fire equipment, we do calls, like we do whatever we can to help out. So we went over there right at the start, I think, of the war in Ukraine in April. And we were there for like a little under a month. And we were all over Ukraine. And it was me and like 8 other firefighters from California. There were some guys there was a guy from Australia. There was a guy from Germany. Just basically going over there and just doing good was the mission. And after that, I kind of came back and I was just like, oh, like I have all these like skills and training that I've like built up over years. I'm doing nothing with it. You know what I mean? And I was just like kind of sitting around in Wyoming with all these advanced certs and like training, and nobody really needed me there. So yeah, it was kind of like, it was a very moving experience because it was like the first time in my life that every day, like there was no BS. Like every day I was doing good things, and every day like we were making someone's day better or someone's life better. And it was like the most wholesome week that you could spend as like a fireman or as like a first responder. Just like everywhere you're going, you're doing good, and people are just like happy to have you there.
That's something that's pretty cool. You can parlay some of those first responder skills into, doing good for the world like you did.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how long were you there? You said a month? Yeah,
the team was there a little under a month. I had to leave early because I had to leave like a week early because I had to finish my flight certs. And there's like a timeline for that. So I had to leave like a week early. But yeah, we were there for around a month.
Okay, so at the time you were engaged, yeah?
No, I wasn't engaged, but it was like
dating.
It was going that way. Like it was pretty clear that we were going to be together, and that was like part of the reason we came here. Is she was like, okay, like if you're going to do this, like when you come back, we're moving, and I was like, all right, fine.
So we're done with Ukraine? Like you're not going back?
You might have to take this part out. No, I'm kidding. We are still over there. We have deployed several teams, especially with things ramping up. And like, I don't know if you guys saw, they just killed 4 firefighters over there with a missile strike. So we routinely have teams over there. Annie would probably murder me if I went again, but I still run things from here. And so I run the board with our other board members. It's like 4 of us.
Okay.
So I still run it, but
okay.
I don't think Mom is going to let me go.
How was Annie while you were going there and while you were there? Was that pretty hard on you guys? Did you even have like cell service and in contact? And was she just worried all the time, or how did that work?
Yeah, she was freaking out the entire time. We had to communicate on Signal because there's end-to-end encryption. You couldn't do iMessage. You couldn't do anything that we normally use because there's like Starlink and stuff over there. But because of like the way Russian communications were working, they were attacking like first responders and stuff, and they were locating people based off cell phone signals. And so this was like the first like really advanced like technological war where both sides are utilizing like cell phones and apps and stuff to kind of target people with like missile strikes and artillery strikes. So it was kind of wild that we like we always had our phones off during the day. We didn't have phones on us. We had like very encrypted communication with back home. We were always delayed by like 2 days. So that way, like we couldn't like be tracked, so to speak. But this is at the time there was active, like, I don't know what you'd call them, from like Wagner, the paramilitary group that Russia uses. What they did was they had like bounties on Americans, and because there were several Americans over in Ukraine at the time, and they were offering like, I forget how many rubles it was for like live Americans that were captured, because they wanted to say that they were fighting for Ukraine and say that the U.S. was involved. So it was like pretty like quickly. It was like while we were there, I was like, oh, I might not have thought this all the way through, but like to be honest, it was a pretty great way to like to be over your head, and to like, it was a steep learning curve, but it was terrifying, but also like, also kind of it was terrifying, but like everything turned out fine, so we're good.
Yeah, when it's in the past, it's like, man, I did something. That was pretty cool. When you're in it,
Yes.
You're pretty scared.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's terrifying, like you're talking about it.
Ukraine gave us like these sweet service medals, actually, that they like shipped over. I just got it like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know
How much did you sell it for?
because I don't speak Ukrainian, but it's all it's pretty cool.
Nice. So one of the reasons I asked about Annie and how she did is kind of, we've had some military spouses and military service members on the podcast before. And it's interesting to hear the similarities from the families that are home while the spouses are gone out at war, and the wives and the spouses from firefighters that are at home. There's a lot of similarities just from you can talk to them nowadays with all the technology, but they're not there to help with the family issues or with raising the kids or what have you. And I know that the spouses that are so close, even, in the same city while they're firefighters working, it's like they're right there, but they can't help, and I can't get them home. And then they're going to come home the next day. Yeah. And then you get a phone call that's like, oh, by the way, he's not coming home today. And it's probably going to be 3 or 4 more days.
Yeah.
So maybe, Ryan, touch on that and how that affected the mandates from CAL FIRE, your family, how you guys dealt with some of that stuff.
Yeah, so obviously that was way more frequent of occurrence with CAL FIRE than it has been with Ventura City so far. And my wife, I mean, bless her, she was really good about handling the kids and stuff like that, as far as me being away and just managing like our house when I'm gone, getting the kids to sports and everything like that. Our kids are fairly young still. I mean, they're going to be 5 next week and 8. So they're young and don't have a lot. We don't have a ton of stuff going on yet, but it was just having to manage all that. I know she struggled with that, obviously, and I was far away, so it wasn't even like, hey, come by the station and hang out for a little bit, and you can go for, you can go in the other room while I hang out with the kids. You can have peace and quiet. So it's just being with, 4-year-olds or 3-year-olds, especially like during COVID, it was really hard. Like during that time, it was stuck at home, and I was stuck at work for a lot of that because we were same as Ventura, I'm sure, and everywhere else. Everyone was going home on COVID vacations, and I didn't get any until like the very end of that. I was like, oh, yeah, COVID, hey, let's hang out, let's have some hugs, and I couldn't get it. So.
It's even worse for firefighters because now everybody's home and we're working more than we ever
we were working, right? Like at that point, like that was probably like one of the hardest times. Was like, I think that was the only time she ever had to call me and go, hey, I need you to come home. Like, I can't, like there was one period, I think I was on like day 14. She's like, I need you to come home. Like, it was done, like seriously. Like, but she did very well managing it. And I know it was a struggle and just trying to, making sure you're communicating every day. And I try to call my kids every night and FaceTime and do that if you can, if you're not obviously running calls and stuff like that. But just,
I went to some classes when my kids were little on parenting, and they talked a lot about this whole quality time as a dad thing is not really where it's at. You need quantity time with your kids because that turns into quality time. And I remember raising my hand going, what happens if that's not a choice? Like, it's not up to you how much you spend time with your kids. So I know you guys deal with that too. And John, you're right in the mix, kind of the same ages as Ryan's kids. Your kids are a little bit younger. John, what do you do with your kids to try to make sure you spend as much quantity / quality / how do you deal with all that stuff with the kids?
Well, quantity is all about time management, right? There's not a lot of time management in CAL FIRE right here. I had a buddy of mine, he was a fireman up in Sac, and his wife was a fire, and then she retired as a chief for CAL FIRE. She said, it's not CAL FIRE, it's Can't Do Family. is what she called Cal Fire.
That's CDF, can't do family.
Yeah. So, but we have special time every day. We have daddy every day. But we have an hour with the daughter, just me and her. We have an hour with the son, just me. And then we do family time for at least a few hours. But mine are younger. You said your youngest is 5, right? You got 5 and 8. Yeah. Are yours in school already?
They're in school. That's where they're at right now. Otherwise, you'd be hearing noise in the background. Or I'm going to garage.
And that's got to be a whole other challenge if you only have 2 days out of the week that you're home, and then they're not even home for those days.
Yeah. No, yeah. So just
how do you
get them as soon as they get out of school, and just weekends obviously are big, and then I try to and even when I was with Cal Fire, I would do this. The one thing Cal Fire does have is you get a lot of vacation time. So, but if you're not on vacation, you're mandated. So I would take a lot of my vacation in the summer. And so I would have most of June and July off. So that definitely during the summer, I was home on all my days and spending obviously a lot of beach days and all that. So that it just stacked that way a little bit better because I knew that they were going to be home, obviously. And my wife, she's a teacher, so her summers are off. So it was just be able to have that family time. I do a lot of it in the summer. Even now, this year, I took most of July off between taking days off and trades and stuff like that. So, the same thing. So, but yeah, just spending as much time as I can with them. It's the same thing. My son's in baseball right now, so trying to play catch every afternoon, and then their favorite thing is wrestling it. It's bedtime. Okay, can we wrestle for an hour? Okay. Which just means dogpiling.
He does the same thing at work too.
Beat up on dad. Yeah.
Well, that's because we have with that squad.
Yeah, never work in the squad with him. He's is it an hour of wrestling time?
And then Sam comes in the room. I go, "Hey, you have to take your shirt off, dude. We're not doing this with shirts."
It's weird. Yeah, it's funny. Fenwick and Vaughn went right to the squad talk too. I think there's something going on with the squads. You guys partner up so quick. You spend so much time together. It's it's a new good bonding tool, especially when you have other rookies at the station who can't, work on the squad as much.
Squads make you weird for sure.
Spend a bunch of time on there. Yeah,
yeah. Circle of trust.
That has nothing to do with the squads.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need 5 more squads and we'll be
set. Yeah. You don't have a single complaint.
Thanks for listening. This is Joe from Ventura Fire Foundation. We have an exciting lineup of free webinars for firefighter families in 2024. In June, Dr. Rachel Zemlock, a psychologist and firewife, will provide advice for families coping with disaster response when the firefighter is away for long chunks of time. The webinars are open to fire families throughout the U.S. and will be held on Zoom. There are limited seats available, though, so register soon. You can register on our website or through the link in the show notes. All of the webinars will be recorded and made available on our website and YouTube channel. Support from Vanguard Charitable made this series possible, and we thank them. Now back to the show.
Ellis just mentioned he talked about time every day and setting aside time, and he's very good, and you've actually taught me some stuff, John, on just living intentionally. And what I tell my kids, my phrase to them is, you guys don't let life happen to you. You need to happen to life. You need to make the decisions. Don't let it just fall on you. I remember when my kids were in high school, I ended up taking off every day that they had a sports meet. For my daughter, it was cheerleading. For my older son, it was diving. And then my younger son was track and field or golf or whatever they were into. And I think that was really good for both of us too. But that's one of those, you see those fleeting years with your kids they're going away. So spend as much time as you can while they're still young. And Sam, I don't know if you're planning on having kids or not at any time. Are you and Annie talking about kids yet and talking about how that's going to affect you?
Yeah.
On the podcast.
I don't want kids because
do you have anything you want to announce on the podcast? I'm just kidding.
I don't.
Congratulations, Sam.
I don't want kids because all my friends and coworkers are dads, and all I hear them talk about is how busy they are. And me being 30 and truly living my life however I want to. It's just wait, you mean that's time I can't go fish? That's time I can't go hunt? But to John's credit, like I talk to John about this a lot, and Ann's very set on kids. I'm also scared of being like a shitty dad. So for me, it's very intentional. So like we probably will have kids, but when I watch like guys like John, like we had dinner at John's house the other day, and his kids like have just these like they're wonderful all the time, but they have like these like crystal clear moments. You're like, oh, you know, yeah, I kind of get it. Like it is like I do understand why, you know what I mean? So like we're right at the pinnacle of like I'm not gonna have kids, so like, oh, okay, I'll probably have kids. We're right at the zenith of that today.
So the podcast is aware. About 30 minutes ago, an hour ago, I'm not sure, I got a video from my wife of my two kids going absolutely bonkers because random gifts arrived in the mail, and they're just Christmas morning in it, right? Just through the Amazon packaging, and just a whole bunch of thank you, Uncle Sam's. And this guy's going to be such a good dad. He just knows the way.
They're just like little pets. They just play with the packaging and they don't care about the toys.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, as long as it has a little
bubble pack
up things, the poppers.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to open it up to any of the three of you guys if you want to talk about anything non-specific roundtable, and then I do want to get one story, good, bad, funny, whatever you want, from each of you guys, from work or probation or the year or whatever. I'll start with just quick ones. Ryan was on my crew as a rookie, and this won't be harsh on you, Ryan. Don't worry. And as a rookie, we were talking. He was a lateral. He was on probation with me, which meaning he had less than a year on, and he had 19 guys under him for seniority, which is insane and unheard of. And then Sam, you and I, man, I don't know. We have some kind of Jewish connection in our backgrounds.
It's true.
You remind me a lot of myself when I was, a young pup like yourself.
I appreciate it.
And I love going ocean fishing just like both of you guys. So I connect with you both on
hell yeah
on that level too.
Yeah,
and I'm waiting for the invite. So anytime we're good.
Hell yeah.
He doesn't invite anyone.
The boat doesn't work, so it's hard to go fishing on a boat.
We can break down on the channel.
Well, it is a boat. We expect that.
Yeah.
How about you guys? Can you give me a memory or something from your probation that you could talk about, or maybe in the last few months?
I have a great story.
Send it.
So the Lateral Academy, for those that don't know, the only two groups that got truly like Ventura City lateraled were our group and John's group. And I maintain that we had it harder than anybody else, and it was the best constructive experience. All that being said,
is it the best job you ever had?
100% best job I ever had.
Okay, thanks.
There's no way that any other groups got it as hard as we did between just the Mukes'ing. But one day, it's like the first week. It's like the first week, and we're doing this run, and like I don't run at all. I can't run, and they have us doing. It's the Mukes like 30 minutes of burpees workout. And John, you know what I'm talking about. And we're doing this thing. And at one point, someone had messed something up. And Ariza and Mukes are just so upset that we just start running. And they're like, no, everyone grab a weight. But it wasn't like kettlebells. It was like random ass weights that they found. Like one of them was a kettlebell. One of them was like a 45-pound plate. One of them's a sandbag. And we're running down Alessandro. And Ben had been like the leader that week. And we're like trying to keep together, but trying to go faster. And they're clearly like just trying to pick us apart. And so we're getting yelled at. And Ben, poor sweet Benjamin, is running with this like sandbag weight. And Ariza grabs it from him. And he's like, you're going too slow. And he just takes off with this weight. And so Ben's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm good. I'll run with the group. And Mukes comes up behind him. And he's like, why did you let him grab that weight? Go get that weight back. And we look over and Ariza's like sprinting away, like probably like a quarter mile away at this point. So Ben like tries to grab somebody else's weight, and we're like, no, you're on your own. And just it was like that for just like 4 weeks of just like, at the time it was miserable, but now looking back on it, it was like it was some of the most fun I've ever had.
They call that team building. Again, it's just like Ukraine. When you look back on
Yeah.
it, it was a great thing to have done to you,
Yes.
right? But at the time, it's pretty gnarly. It's terrifying.
Oh, it was like I remember every day coming in and I was like, I can't. Okay, like I just have to make it till lunch. And then I was at lunch and I was like, okay, I just have to make it like till 5 p.m. And I did that for like 3 weeks. And by the end, I was like, okay, like I understand the program. I'm fine now. But initially, like that first day with like where they're just screaming at Ben and screaming at us, and I'm like, oh, this is like not just an orientation. This is like pretty hardcore. Like I was misled
It's going to be a
somewhere.
4-week basic orientation.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the story that I remember from your academy. I think it was Miser that said, it's going to be a pretty mellow academy. We know you guys are all laterals. It's just an orientation, not really a probation.
He kept saying, oh, it's like a
And
quick
then the story goes into
4-week academy, 4-week orientation.
Yeah. And then the story goes into you guys are, on death's doorstep and everybody turns around and Sam Stein's got this blood coming down from his nose. And they're like, are you okay? And he's like, let's just keep going.
Yeah. There's nothing more.
Also,
Ventura City
I don't know if
than
you
that.
want to talk about this at all, Sam, but first diabetic, type 1 diabetic.
Yeah.
That was hired by Ventura City, and everybody gets to mess with you about that. But that's actually pretty cool that we're at the place now medically where you can still work and not worry about your sugar stuff, and that's pretty rad.
Yeah. Oh, I still worry about it. I just internalize it like a duck on the surface.
Well, we already talked about the fact that we're Jewish, right?
Yeah.
So of course you worry about it when everything else.
Yeah.
But,
I'm the target of someone.
How about you, Ryan?
He's always got snacks.
You would never know.
That's the only way you know. He's the snack guy. You're like, this guy crushes it with the
And
tree.
he's probably going to have to go pee in a minute.
Yeah. It's a team mom, and he has no bladder. Yep, we've covered this. All right, Hal, you're up. You got a
Mine
story
was very
for us?
similar. And I've been trying to think of something else. That obviously that academy was not just an orientation.
It was a quick, it's a quick 4-week orientation, in and out.
Yeah. There was more PT than anything else.
Was the kick in the teeth? Was the kick in the teeth worse than Cal Fire's kick in the teeth? Was it?
No, and that's like Vaughn and I the whole time, because Vaughn came from Cal Fire too. We're like,
Yeah.
they're gonna make me run on the beach.
Yeah.
Boo hoo. Like, we had to walk run up to Lone Tree one day, and it was like, or some of us had to run up to the flag. Some of us did not. Sam took the van.
3 of us.
Hey,
were in the
I
van.
want-
3 of us were in the van.
I
And
want
got
everyone
shit
to know Sam is an Olympic swimmer, so let's all
Thank
just pump the
Thank
brakes.
Yeah.
Sam. But you're saying, okay.
Doggy paddles.
So, Ryan, I will say that you're the first guy to come on the podcast, and I think it was maybe John's Academy where Eric Mukes' name became a verb for the first time. I got Mukes'd. And that was, and that is now like a full thing. So this is going to be interesting to hear if Eric actually listens to the podcast, and if he comments at some point, we'll have to have him on and go, "Hey man, who did you Mukes today?"
Oh yeah, I think
See
he
what he
knows
has to
he's
say.
like,
He loves
we
it.
all had it together.
Yes.
And so I don't know if it's worse though, because we had it together, so we had each other to like bounce off of. Now, anytime one of these probationary guys, and we have a lot of them, work overtime with Mukes for the first time, they're getting Mukes'd, but by themselves. Like, he's doing
Hours.
like 2 to 3 workouts a day with them, and it's just like, hey, we're going to give you the worst ones from their academy, and we're going to do all of them together today. Like, just the 2 of us.
Yeah, back to back. Like,
So
here's a water
back
bottle.
to
You
back,
ready
so
for the
I think
next
it's
one?
worse.
He
Yeah.
did the burpee workout to Gomez and the other new guy, I forget his name. And he was like, I was with him that day, and he's like, hey man, we're just going to do a quick workout. And he started writing it out. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. You can't make me do it.
Don't do it.
You
He's like,
can't
"Well,"
make me.
He's like, you're fine. No, you don't. He's like, it's not for you. It's for them. Like, you really don't have to do it. If you like, you're welcome to join us. But I was like, yeah, and you can't make me. And you can't make me. And like freaking out. He's like, no, you're fine, dude. Chill.
That sounds like
right.
our whole academy. Every time we would go back, behind the locker. They can't make us do this anymore.
Oh man,
I'm like, it's all right. We'll make it.
it's only funny because it's over.
Yes.
Yeah, it's only funny because it's over. It was funny at the time. I was laughing. But
And again, those are things you remember forever as team building. My academy was pretty gnarly back in the day, and I remember hating those guys for doing it to me. And luckily, it was a Ventura County Academy, and I still harbor ill will towards those guys in Ventura County for doing that. But any closing comments, John? Anything you want to share with us from this before we let these guys go?
No, these guys are amazing. I said in the last one, the laterals that we got through, especially in Station 3 where we have the squad and we got a bunch of firemen, which I think having a bunch of firemen rank in the house changes the atmosphere. It's not a young guy atmosphere. It's a senior atmosphere that just got injected hard into the space. And these guys are testaments to it, especially Ryan Howell's mustache, like real strong presence.
look at yours.
Stop it. These guys are awesome. They're a riot to have around the house, and they definitely hold the bar. They got a very high standard. So it's awesome having them.
Right on. Well, I'm going to end the podcast on that positive note. So thank you guys for being on with us. We look forward to, what you bring to the department as senior fireman leadership, like John was saying. And I look forward to your guys' future and being leaders in the department as well. So thanks for being on, and we'll see you guys out there.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was a fun recording with two of our guys who recently got off probation. And, I say they just got off probation, but the truth is all these laterals, we get so lucky in Ventura City because we get long-term firefighters that want to come up to kind of where their forever department, we'll call it. So it was cool interviewing those two guys. Both Sam and Ryan have such different backgrounds, but they're both super relatable. Sam's story with going to Ukraine and starting a 501c3 is just crazy. I'm so stoked that he was able to share that with us. And then Ryan, I relate to his story a lot where, he's always wanted to be a firefighter, and then he kind of got the first job that came up. He was super loyal to that department, and then him and his wife wanted like a forever career. So I know, John, you went through the academy, one of the academies that Eric Mukes helped out with, Captain Mukes at the time. So for our listeners who don't know, why don't you give them some insight into what an Eric Mukes workout or getting Mukes'd looks like?
Yeah, getting Mukes'd has different flavors, but it usually has the same kind of pain associated with it. So like day one of the academy, they'll just start a timer with no end to it and say, we will do burpees until this timer ends. And there's no end to the timer. It's not going to zero. It's going to infinity. And then there's the next day, whereas the recovery run is, it's like a 5 or 6 mile run where every couple minutes you do burpees till you want to vomit. My personal favorite I wasn't the 1 mile run in turnout gear. My personal favorite was, the in your turnouts, lifting weights, pushing sleds. And then every 10 minutes he would get in a van and blast mariachi music. And you had to push the van like it was a sled while he held the brake pedal down. With mariachi just blasting. I think that one
that
was
does
my
sound like
Mukes'd.
a good time.
Yeah. It's a party without the taco truck. Yeah. But
what do we have coming up for the foundation? What do we got on the horizon?
So the foundation's got a lot of things coming up. Most notably, we got a free webinar June 18th. The link should be attached, so please register below, for Dr. Zemlock. Dr. Zemlock has helped a lot of different organizations, including some fire organizations, is my understanding, with how to prepare for long deployments for firefighters, how to prepare and support your relationships with your family for when you're gone for long periods of times, and just resources to maybe support fire families in that way. So go ahead and register with the link below, and it's free. So, get what we can from it.
Yeah, as part of our series this year that we're going to be hosting from the foundation, and we have a lot of cool family first aspect people coming on and guest hosts coming on doing webinars. So I'm looking forward to Dr. Zemlock's June 18th. Register below. Thanks for being on the show with me, John. It's fun as always, and we'll see you out there.
I'm so excited. Thanks for having me, Jay. See you next time.